Well, here we are again, another Father's Day. Yeah, and I know I should be celebrating, but, for me, this day is starting to become something different. I feel like I am constantly being surrounded by people and moments in movies where seemingly perfect dads are doing seemingly perfect things. Families hug, kids smile, and another dad stands triumphant. Roll credits. Well, that's just not me. For whatever reason, Father's Day keeps seeming to land on a Sunday every year, which, of course, in my family means we're going to go to church. I'm sure the pastor's going to get up and preach some convicting sermon about how a good dad should have the courage of David, the wisdom of Solomon, the perseverance of Paul, and the unconditional love of Jesus Christ himself. And then he'll stop talking, he'll close in prayer, and I'll be left sitting there feeling, less than. Because I'm not that dad. I'm the dad that hopes to get 2 seconds with my kids before I head out the door to go to work every morning. I'm not the dad that gets to get up, help them get ready, and then sit around the family breakfast table and check their homework before they head out to school. And the last time I was in charge of getting them ready, they ended up wearing pajamas all day, which, according to my wife, is not okay, even though I'm pretty sure that pants are pants. And I think I heard that Ryan Seacrest guy say on TV that plaid is in right now. At least I hope he did. I'm not the dad that makes it to every baseball game, even though I really want to. I'm not the dad that always has the right thing to say, and sometimes the only thing I can think of is because I said so. I'm the dad that tries to model a good family, but, my wife sometimes and we fight. And sometimes I feel like maybe I'm modeling the wrong thing. I'm the dad of what ifs. What if I do something wrong? What if I can't give my kid everything he needs? What if I can't be the dad that everybody wants me to be? So I get it. I get that Father's Day is about celebrating dads. I just don't know if it's about celebrating this dad. Well, who knows, right? Maybe this year will be different.
Well, good morning, everybody. How are you all? Excellent. It's good to be here with you. I'm Seth. I'm the middle school pastor here at Cassis, and I see we've got some student ministries peeps back there. That's what I like to see. Real quick, let me speak to you all without stepping on Matt's thing. We got it? Eye contact? Everybody good? We've made a deal on what you all are supposed to do and all your cheering and whatnot, but I need to change the deal. Sorry. Sad. So one more time, you'll have one more opportunity in just a moment to cheer real loud and go crazy, and then save it all on Matt's when he dismisses us. I want you to just blow the roof off this place. Sounds good. All right. So, deal between us, let's do this. As I said, I'm the middle school pastor here. I've been working here for nearly 10 years with your students, and I've been able to reflect on many things during that time. And the conclusion that I have come to after working with your kids is simply this: dads, you all are heroes. Excellent. And I honestly mean that. I am a new father myself. And I need to be honest with you. When I started, right before I became a dad, I kind of was anticipating fatherhood and looking towards it, and I kind of thought it'd be easy. I said to myself, please. I mean, it's a breeze, right? You just get the kid, throw him up in the air a couple times, spin him around. Boom, best dad in the world. I have an admission to make. I don't think that anymore. It's hard. And I changed, my whole perspective on this changed about a month and a half ago or so, when I was doing my best to be the best possible dad and the best possible husband I could be to my family, and my son was expressing his needs. He was dirty. He was sharing it with the rest of us, and so I said, I got this one. And I took him and I put him down on his changing table and I prepared to change him. And so I did what every person does when they go to change a baby. I undo the onesie, move it up out of harm's way, undo the diaper, take off the dirty diaper, put it to the side, get ready to throw it away, get the clean diaper ready. And as I'm doing that, I hear my son, Max, you can see him there, he was the U of A baby, he's adorable and wonderful. And Max, I hear that unique giggle that only babies make, the kind of thing. And I look down, and Max, God bless his little soul, Max is fire hosing it all over the place. It's hitting his mobile above him. It's going all over his onesie, all over the changing table. It's hitting him in the right cheek. And he's giggling and happy about it. And reacting as only a sane person would, I dropped the clean diaper, and I put my hand there to stop the flow. And when it had subsided, I stepped back and examined what had just happened. My son was covered in baby pee. The mobile and the changing table were covered in baby pee. My arm was soaked. I was a good dad. Took off the soaked onesie, put it in the hamper, grabbed a wipe, wiped off his cheek, threw that away, got the clean diaper. As I'm getting the clean diaper, that giggle happens again. I don't even want to look this time. I look down, the fire hose is going again. Same exact thing. Everything is covered. Only difference, left arm this time instead of right. Stops. I step back again, take stock, and realize that had my wife walked into that room at that moment, she would not have realized where she was. And there may have been some confusion, whether it was a baby's room or like the splash zone at a Shamu show at SeaWorld. It was that bad. And I just kind of put the diaper on and just stopped and thought for a second. And now I look back and it's funny and we laugh about, all those little things. But in that moment, I remember thinking that if I cannot keep my baby son from peeing on himself and everything else in the room twice within a span of 30 seconds, what else am I not going to be able to do as his father? Am I going to truly, honestly be able to teach him how to ride a bike without falling and face planting? He's going to be stuck with training rules for the rest of his life. Am I going to know what to do when he falls and skins his knee the first time? Well, come on, Buttercup, get up, run some dirt on it. Is that an appropriate response? I don't know. Am I going to, when he suffers his first heartbreak, am I going to be able to have the words to comfort him? Or when, as they all inevitably do, he grows up and becomes a moody teenager, am I going to have the patience to deal with him? And I just sat there wondering, can I do any of this? And I look back now, and I'm glad that I had that moment because it helped me gain some perspective on this morning. You see, I used to think, because not only am being a dad, I'm a pastor, I'm a preacher. And I used to think, well, Father's Day is a great day to get together, get all the dads in the room, and we can kind of train them and encourage them to be better dads. We'll drop a little bit of Ephesians 6. Don't exasperate your children on them. We'll be crazy. And at the end of the day, we'll end up and people will walk out and they will be better dads because of what we did. And now I realize that the last thing I need is a Sunday telling me how inadequate I am, how better I need to be. I generally realize that I do not have the makeup of a great dad every single day. Instead, what I need maybe just a little bit is encouragement that I can possibly do this. And so that's what I want today to be for you all, dads. That's what we as a student ministries want today to be for you all, dads. We've canceled student ministry service this morning. We've said, don't go there, come here for just this one morning, so that today we are gathered together as a community, students and parents, husbands and wives, grandparents and grandchildren. We are all gathered here today for simply one reason, and that's to discover what is so heroic about being a dad. Because you see, I believe that dads are heroes. And I believe a hero is this. A hero is somebody who gives up their story to help somebody else discover theirs. Someone who gives up their own story to help another discover their story. So today what we're going to do, we're going to explore kind of some scripture stuff real quick because we're a church and that's what we do here. And what I'd like you to do is if you have your Bibles, go with me to the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 1. We're going to start kind of in the beginning there, and we're going to encounter a man named Joseph. If you're familiar with the story of Joseph, excellent. If not, let's just all catch each other up on where we're at. So we encounter Joseph. Joseph is going through life. He is engaged to be married to a lady named Mary, and he is happening. And as this process goes along, he discovers that his future wife, Mary, is pregnant, and he knows that it is not his. And so he is left with a few options, some of them more cruel than others, but he ultimately decides that he's going to divorce her quietly, as is allowed, and not bring public shame or spectacle to the situation. And so he gets ready to do that, but before he does, he apparently decides to take a nap. Verse 20, after he considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. And it goes on and tells him to name Jesus and kind of who this baby's going to be. It's going to be the Savior. It's going to be great. And at the very end, here's what happens. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. And so Joseph goes into this with plans on how his story is going to progress and go forward. And he goes to sleep, and God says to him, don't get divorced. Take Mary and that baby as your son and wife. And so he gets up, and he says, okay, I'll do that. And so he starts his family, and he starts the settling down process of taking this son as his own, taking this woman as his wife. And he's going through this settling down as a family process, starting his business. And we read later in the story that kings and wise men from another country come to visit after a while, and Herod, the evil king over the area at that time, sends them to discover where the baby is, and Herod has bad plans for the baby. And so they come and they go, and here's what we learn in chapter 2, verse 13. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt. And so Joseph, he settled down, got his family started, got his business started, and then his story has to change again. And God says, change your story. Go to Egypt until I tell you to come back. So he does. We skip ahead. Herod dies. The danger is gone. Verse 19. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. So once again, he started life in Egypt and started this story in Egypt. And God says, I want you to pick up, rewrite your story, and go back. But don't go back to where you're planning on going. I know you're planning on that being your story, but go to another place and have that be the story of you and your family. Every action we read of Joseph, practically every action we read about Joseph doing, we read that is communicated to him through a dream. And where he's appearing, he goes to sleep having one plan in place, one story in place to go forward in this manner. And God speaks to him and says, you're going to need to change your story. You're going to need to change your plans. And he wakes up with a different plan. After the second time, I just wouldn't have taken any more naps. And each time he had to do this, he had to rearrange his life, his story for his kid. Let's make no bones about it. It is for his kid that he's doing this. And you never hear him protest or complain. You never read about him trying to explain to his family why he's doing all these ridiculous things. He just does it. And he realizes that his life is no longer the story of Joseph the carpenter, but it's the story of Joseph, the father of Jesus. And that, friends, is the most heroic thing a dad can do. The most heroic dads are the ones who let their stories become the stories of their children, who let their own personal stories become about their kids. When I think back to when I was a kid, I only now start to see how much of my dad's story really was about me. I played basketball in high school, and so there would be early morning pickup basketball all the way on the other side of town, and my dad would get up at 4:30 in the morning with me and drive me to basketball on the other side of town so I could play at 5. I just thought he liked to get up early. I started out at one high school, didn't like it, decided I wanted to go to a different one, a private one, and my parents and my dad especially said, okay, we'll send you there. No questions asked, and started paying a ton of money for me to go to high school. And then when I didn't get into the college I wanted to go to, had to, kind of panic and make backup plans, they paid for me to go to college. And I just thought they didn't like taking family trips to Europe. Or when my school was half an hour across town and my dad's place of employment was 5 minutes from our home, I didn't want to ride the bus. So my dad would get up early every morning and drive me half an hour, have an hour trip essentially to get to work when he worked 5 minutes from home. My dad's story quickly became about me. And I see now how my story is starting to be about my son, Max. I've discovered, I need to be honest with you, I'm not kidding with you at all. I discovered that my son, he likes to cry sometimes. Who knew? And that there are various ways that you can kind of quell that and stop that. And the one way that works the best is if you sing and dance for him. So, kid you not, 2 weeks ago, we were in Sprouts shopping for healthy organic food, and we were going up and down the aisles, and my son begins to become cranky. I don't know what the problem is, but he's not happy, and I just, come on, just stop, please. That doesn't work. And we're in the produce aisle, and looking at those beautiful fresh apples, and he is just letting it all out, his emotions with the world. And if you were there that day, you would have witnessed a grown man standing in front of a bunch of bananas and a small crying baby singing and dancing. Max and Dad are getting some bananas today. Stop crying, we're gonna have some bananas today. Yeah, bananas. I guarantee you, as I was growing up, before I became a dad, there is no way I ever planned on being the crazy dude dancing and singing in Sprouts. Maybe Fry's, but definitely not Sprouts. And so what we have to do to lay this foundation, to understand where we're going today, we have to come to one simple realization. As dads, as wives, as kids, is anybody in here? We have to shift our thinking. We have to understand, because remember we had Peter up here in that monologue sharing how many of us dads truly feel sometimes, where we just can't bring enough to the table. And we have to shift our thinking from that, and it's not so much about how much a dad provides, but how much he's willing to share his story with his kids that make him a hero. It is not about what you provide, but about how much you're willing to share your story with your kids that make you a hero. Are we all tracking? We all got that? Hopefully that's not mind-blowing to anybody, but it's just a nice little thing to kind of, I like that. And that lays the foundation for where we're going, because we're going to get to some pretty cool stuff here. So let's look together at the next few verses so we can get to where we're going. Next few verses that we're going to look at are one is in Matthew, one is in Mark. Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. Jesus is all grown up. He's now in the midst of his people, and he's starting to be identified and recognized. Let's see here. Isn't this the carpenter's son, they say of him? Isn't his mother's name Mary, and aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And so his people start to see the title and the label that he wears is carpenter's son. Now, chapter 6, verse 3 in Mark, same exact situation. Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? And so we have these labels and these things that he's wearing essentially is carpenter's son, carpenter. For all Jesus is, this is amazing to me, for all that he is and all that he's going to accomplish with his life, he still carries around with him the identity of his earthly father. He's going to be the savior of the world, and he still is known as the carpenter. He could have been anything that he wanted. He's Jesus, God in the flesh. He could have been like an Air Force fighter pilot. There wouldn't have been many jobs, but he could have been that. And yet he chose to reflect his father. He chose to reflect his earthly father. And you see, when fathers share their stories with their kids, Their stories don't disappear, but rather they become reflected in their kids. Their story doesn't just poof, go away, but rather continues and becomes reflected in the kids that you share it with. It's not the shared name that defines and grows a father and their children's relationship, but rather the shared story. It's the reflection of one person in another. That's what gives depth and meaning and power to the relationships that fathers have with their kids. And Jesus seems to have this deep desire to share a story and be a reflection of his earthly father Joseph. He is the Son of God, and yet he still wants to reflect as the son of the carpenter. That's a beautiful thing. And that leads us to the question of why would he do this? Why was it this way? And it's because of this. I believe it's because Jesus had a proper understanding of what it meant to honor his Father. We're all familiar with that passage in Exodus, those 10 commandments, and that one that kind of says, you should, Exodus 20:12, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. We're all familiar with that. And for me, as I read that and I said, okay, I can do this, here's what that means. Eat my vegetables, don't yell at my brother, follow the rules, don't lie to my parents. It meant just obey. Don't ruffle feathers. Be a good kid. But when you really break that down, to limit that commandment of honor your father and mother to simply obey your parents, you cheapen it. You rob it of its potency. Because that word there, my Bible, when I go through and look at the translation, it translates it to the Hebrew word kabed. And this word doesn't simply mean obey and eat your vegetables. This word means so much more than that. This word kabed implies and paints this picture of this weighty heaviness to it. Something that is not easily moved because of its weight and the way it's latched in. And so to honor your parents doesn't mean obey the rules. To honor your parents means to carry them and let them weigh on you and not be moved. And not in a bad, burdensome way, but the way that says, this is so valuable, I'm not letting this go. Here's how this played out in my life. In just one way, I started to reflect. In my house, growing up, there was one thing that served as a common unifier and bond to the whole family, and it was U of A basketball. Better. Good job. U of A basketball. And so every Saturday and Thursday night, we would gather together, especially my dad and I, and we would watch the basketball games. And I've been watching basketball since I was, 4 or 5 years old, and I've been in love with U of A basketball. So we'd watch the games, and we'd watch them go up and down the court. And every now and then, this is going to surprise some of you, U of A lost. And it was tragic in my household at that moment. I would stomp around being so angry and mad, and as a little kid, I can't believe they lost. Dad, can you believe that? Did you see how the refs called that foul on Sean Elliott? Sean Elliott, nobody calls a foul on Sean Elliott. He's amazing. See some old school people in here. Well done. And my dad, Dad, it's clearly the refs cost us that game. Can you believe that? They called those fouls. They must like the other team more than us or something like that. I can't believe, Dad, the refs, man, right? And my dad would stop me and he'd say, no, stop, son. You remember that time where the U of A player threw the ball out of bounds? Don't you think that could have cost us the game? Or remember that time when the U of A player missed the 2 free throws? Don't you think that might have had something with us losing the game? Or do you remember that time when they let the other team score 15 points in a row? Don't you think that might have cost them the game? And I'd have to stop and be like, well, maybe. And what he taught me there in that moment, for not just sports, but in life itself, is what my dad taught me, that you take personal responsibility. You don't shift the blame for your failures on others, but instead you examine yourself and try and become better and grow so that doesn't happen again. And here's where this gets really creepy, is now, fast forward to this time, I still love basketball, so I'm in an afternoon rec league on the weekends, and I showed up early to one of my games, and I'm sitting in the stands watching the game before me, and there's about a 10-year-old kid sitting down watching his dad play in the game before me. And he's so excited to watch his dad play basketball. He's cheering and getting into it and really happy, and his dad's team is winning, and they start to lose. They start to get one of those 15-point runs going. And all of a sudden his demeanor changes and he becomes so mad and so angry and he starts yelling at the ref, "I cannot believe you, ref! You clearly are cheating for the other team. How much are they paying you, ref? Ref, get some glasses." Very witty for a 10-year-old. And I'm sitting there thinking, here's where my thoughts immediately went. What is that kid doing? If I were that, what would I do if I were that? If that were Max, my son, next time out in the game, I would come over and I would pull him aside and say, "Son, we do not do that. We don't yell at the refs, but even more so, you need to understand that it's not his fault that the game's being lost." And all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there listing all these things off, what I would say, and I stop. I've become my father. And I'm reliving and carrying all these talks and values that he imparted to me, and I'm starting to even think about now how I'm going to impart them onto my son and hope that he carries them with him. And I've come to realize that the biggest honor my son Max will ever do for me is to carry me with him. As I pour into him and share my story with him, and my story becomes his. That I don't disappear and that he carries all those talks and those moments and those values with him. And if he does that, that will be the greatest gift he could ever give me. Now we are, sadly, our time is running short, but I want for one moment to speak to a special group in here. And I've worked every time. I've worked with people long enough in life to know that not everybody comes from the greatest families. Not everybody has the best relationship with dad. Quite honestly, some of us have really bad dads. And for those of us, Father's Day is weird because we go and we sit and we hear all these praises of fathers and we say, "Well, I can't connect with that. I don't get that." I want to speak to you all for a moment. Back in the beginning of Matthew, we're not going to put it up there because it's real long, but trust me, it's there. The first 17 verses are genealogy, a list of the family of Jesus. And it's this fascinating thing. When you first read through genealogies, it's kind of like, well, that's kind of boring. It's just a bunch of names, and I can't pronounce half of them, so I don't want to do this. But when you start to really dig deep and explore it, you understand that this genealogy especially, it speaks a powerful lesson. Let's just watch. We'll just read through a couple of them, and I'll show you what I mean. We'll just go with it starts. It starts with Abraham. Well, that's pretty awesome to have as your family, the dude who started everything, like Abraham, father of a nation. Like, who's your grandpa? My grandpa's Abraham. How you like that? And then there's Isaac. Isaac, who was kind of a pretty famous dude in their history, but he kind of played favorites with kids, so he was on the fence a little bit. You have this guy named Judah. If you keep going, you have this guy named Judah, who, he's not so great. He slept with his daughter-in-law, but it's not what you think. He thought she was a prostitute, So he's not that great. But then comes King David, who is a king and this great hero of Jewish history. And so this is this line going down, and you're seeing this lineage. Then comes Solomon, who built God's temple, God's house. So that's pretty awesome. But he had all those wives, so who knows? Then you run into all these kings, Ahaz, Manasseh, Amnon, who are responsible for bringing child sacrifice back into the lives of the Israelites. And they sacrificed, it says, their own sons on the altar of Molech. And so they're clearly not that great. Then you get this guy named Zerubbabel, who besides having an awesome name, he's the one that helps lead the Israelites out of captivity from Babylon back into Israel and begins the process of rebuilding the temple. And then between Zerubbabel and Joseph, you have all these guys that we don't know a whole lot about, but if we go through the pattern of the rest of the genealogy, we kind of can assume that, some are good, some are bad, and some are on the fence, but they're all there. And you understand, what you start to see is that this lineage of Jesus, the Savior of the world, the most beautiful, amazing person ever born, his lineage, his background that he comes from is not only full of great heroes, but is full of scum. It's full of ugliness. It's full of brokenness. And you start to see that just because ugliness was there, it doesn't stop beauty from happening. And those of you who have ugly, broken, harsh backgrounds with your father doesn't mean that beauty cannot happen in your life. You choose to carry his story on. You do not have to. And so I would implore you today to start a new, beautiful story if that's the case. You can start a story with your family and start passing that on so that a beautiful story takes the place of a broken and ugly one. I'm going to invite the band back out to lead us in a little bit more worship. But here's simply what I want us to camp on as we do that. To remember, to reflect on the idea that a hero is someone who gives up their story to help another person discover theirs. That is a hero. That's what makes the dads in this room heroes. And so today, here's your application. As you reflect on worship and get ready to go out and celebrate with your dads, hopefully, give them whatever gift you bought them. I'm sure they're going to love it, and I'm sure they want it. But the gift that you can give them today is the gift of reflection, the gift of having them see themselves in you, the gift of carrying them on and honoring them. Maybe at your table today, the best gift you can give Dad is the gift, Dad, here's what you've meant to my life. Here's how I want to carry you on and reflect you. And dads, if your kids aren't at that spot yet, maybe it's what you're excited to reflect on them, or maybe it's, you know what, you know that guy Grandpa? Here's what I'm carrying from him. Here's the reflections that he's left with me. Or maybe you don't have kids yet. Maybe you're married, you don't have kids yet. That's fine too. I got stuff for you guys too. Wives, you don't have kids. Look at your husbands today and tell them, I'm so excited that our kids could reflect this trait in you, could reflect this moment in you. Whatever it is, give the gift of reflection. So let's spend these last few minutes worshiping, reflecting on the simple idea that to be a dad is to be a hero. Matt.